How did it go this weekend? And how did it go last week? As we heard from a couple of different people assessing the campaign and also the Republican and the Democratic conventions. I heard Newt Gingrich yesterday. He was appearing on the program, CNN State of the Union, talking about the speech given by President Bill Clinton.
You can take his speech, spin it not very much, and it's actually a condemnation of the fact that Obama learned nothing. And Bob Woodward's new book indicates he learned nothing out of the 2010 election.
Is that what you thought of it? Well, if you've checked out the plays for the presidency, Bubba's Revenge, Bill Clinton's convention keynote was Payback for GOP impeachers and Hillary beaters, too. That is what Alan Kelly is writing. Alan Kelly joining us this morning, CEO and founder of Playmaker Systems, and is calling from far away today, but joins us to talk as we assess what happened last week. Thanks for being here. I know it's early where you are.
Good morning. Lovely San Francisco. We're waiting for the sun to come up and see the Golden Gate.
All right. Love to see that. It's a beautiful sight.
Yeah.
All right. So Bill Clinton, the speech last week, a lot of people, I saw some surveys, even Democrats said that they liked his speech better than President Obama's. But the way you're writing about it, it may not have been so much about President Obama.
Well, I think you have to sit back and look at what happened in Charlotte. And, I suppose it's a little bit like the Clint Eastwood stunt. That was really certainly the most notable thing. But I think it was the most skillful thing that we saw. I mean, it is acting, whether it's Clint Eastwood or it's a politician. We really are talking about forms of acting. And I'm not sure, perhaps with the exception of Michelle Obama, that there was a better performance that had better political perfect pitch than Bill Clinton, but his was almost too clever because you have to, if you're a Republican, you have to sit back and think, boy, I thought we'd put him to bed. and I think to some degree, I may be reaching here a little bit, but if you're someone, say like the president, you have to think, I thought we'd put him to bed. I mean, he is a very resilient person, and his mastery and the plays that he ran, to use our lexicon, were very, very skillful.
Going through from the context, and for people who aren't familiar with the way Alan does this, is that you look at this in the context of what you would call, I guess, the equivalent of the periodic table of elements for politics, which is the plays that are being run. And one of the plays is label that you use. And why does that matter, and how does that matter in the context of our discussion of what we saw at the convention?
Well, a label is certainly one of the most common plays, and it is simply the name that we give to a strategy or an influence strategy, to be geeky, for when a situation is appropriately or nicely boiled down to something that's memorable. And so, in other words, a soundbite, like in Bill Clinton's case, certainly people slapped a label on him of Slick Willie. And in his case, he self-labeled himself after New Hampshire some years ago to call himself the comeback kid. So, if you can put these things into, a few words or sentences and that are memorable, it is, and apply them well at the right time, it is a play that works very, very well. And thus, to extend the metaphor, it becomes very hard for the applyee to disapply the labels.
Disapply, wow.
Yeah. And he ran some very good ones. I mean, not the least of which, of course, was things like Double Down on Trickle Down and Romney Zero. He said, many times alliteratively. He's very, very clever.
Let's mention this one, and this is something you write about just so we can refresh memory of people who hadn't heard it.
In Tampa, the Republican argument against the president re-election was actually pretty simple, pretty snappy. It went something like this. We left him a total mess. He hadn't cleaned it up fast enough, so fire him and put us back in.
All right, so that was the great framer, you call him. Yes, and that was, it seems, the simplest message of all, which is, okay, it's pretty easy now to understand what he's talking about.
That was so good that we almost felt that had the effect of his running the labeled play, because it's, I talked to a lot of people over the last week, and many are talking about, that phrase or those 2-3 sentences, and it's not like flip flopper. It's not like Slick Willie, but in their own words, many people are coming back and essentially saying the clip you just ran. But the plays that at stake are particularly for that passages are again two other framing plays in our system where there are 24 options, but there's a particular category where you frame. And here he's running recasts and he's running filters. He's taking information and he's using it in a particular ordering that is preferential to him, and he's filtering. He's using some information and he's not using others. Mm-hmm. And in this case,
that's what politics is about, right? I mean,
that's what it's all about.
Selective use of information, right?
That's right. Well, we talked about last week, especially we thought that in Tampa there was probably an overuse and abuse of the filter play to the point where their authenticity was greatly undermined. So you can't overuse these plays. You can't do them too much. But Clinton's is just so good. He understands how to reach his audience. He understands how to use the strategies to go in and out a little bit here, a little bit there. He's really that good.
Well, Alan, put this in perspective. Alan Kelly, CEO, founder of Playmaker Systems, with us this morning. And on the side-by-side of this, the story, it seems, coming out of the Republican convention was Clint Eastwood. It was what he did with the empty chair. The story coming out of the Democratic convention was Bill Clinton and what he said and what he did. I mean, there was a lot more, but really the memorable parts of both conventions had to do with something other than the candidate for president. I can't believe that was intentional strategy.
No, it's hard. It's hard to believe that they really wanted that. Well, see, I mean, Clint Eastwood was, in my view, he was great. And he actually created memorability. He created interest. He created relevance. He really actually laid it out for the Romney campaign to do some very useful things. The problem is that they missed the point. They missed the opportunity. Instead of saying about the Clint Eastwood thing, oh, well, thank you very much for he was very supportive and we appreciate that. They should have said, hey, he made our day, blah, blah, blah. They should have built on it. And I think that I suppose to some extent the Obama campaign missed an opportunity to really build fully on Bill Clinton, but I think they've been more savvy about this. This is what we talked about over the weeks is that if you take each of the campaigns and you superimpose them onto our periodic table, these 7 classes, these 7 subclasses, these 24 discrete plays, it's very, very clear that the Obama campaign has real dynamic range. They go from one extreme to another, from very low assessing plays to very high engagement. But the Romney campaign is very, very much more stuck in the narrow band. That could mean that they're quite much more disciplined and they have more command and control. But I don't think so. I think they miss opportunities to make the most of things. They don't have an improvisational ability, not nearly to the degree that the Obama campaign does.
Yeah, you and I talked about that last week. The lack of the ability to be agile for the Romney campaign is something that does not serve them very well. It serves President Obama well. It may be that this election is about him as much as it is about anything else. It's not so much his policies. It's just whether he's the guy that people feel more comfortable with. And I don't know if there's a play for that. If there is something, it's not so much about the strategy, but rather eventually there's a familiarity with a particular product and people say, I just would prefer that than to try something new that might be better.
Well, that's a very interesting point. I'm not sure there is a name for a play like the comfort play or something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly.
You're really talking about, I think, the outcomes of all the created moves and countermoves over a period of time. And we talked about this a few weeks ago that very often the strategists who are doing these things, they sit at a soundboard of sorts, just like the one you're sitting in front of right now, with all the dials and rheostats and so on and so forth. And so they're constantly tuning things up, tuning things down. They're using a little humor there. They're using a little seriousness there. And this, by the way, is again where Clinton is so good. He sets, when he gives a speech, he sits at a figurative soundboard, if you will. He doesn't just run plays, but he's adjusting them. He's nuancing everything as he goes. Obama's pretty good at that too, very good. But I would say the Republicans, by contrast, are much more bricky or blocky as they try to adjust those dials.
I can only wait for the debates because I'm guessing that there will be more plays run during the debate than we've seen so far.
Well, we should be able to do a timeline, literally, along a sequence, plot the plays as we go from player A to player B, from Obama to Romney, back and forth, and we should be able to look at that and aggregate them, and be able to get a very good idea whether or not, let's say, one of the candidates is diverting, or one is more prone to freezing plays, or one is really trying to press their advantage or maybe provoke. These are the things that we can use the table. Finally, we've got a reference system that allows us not just simply to see the words and the messages, but the underlying motives and moves and countermoves behind it all. That's the beauty of it.
By the way, for those who wonder, the picture on the front of the New York Times with Scott Van Duzer grabbing the president, that is not the bear hug that Alan talks about all the time. That's a real bear hug right there. That's not the kind of thing you talk about as strategy, though, right?
No, the bear hug is a move of, I say this facetiously, a move of violent agreement. It's when you sat in the front row in the class of your math teacher and you said, "Yes, Mrs. Sklizinskowitz, that's an excellent idea."
Yeah, right.
I mean that's a bear hug, when you're trying to very quickly and be agreeable to someone so that you can curry favor, or perhaps be part of what it is they're trying to do. So no, that was a different bear hug.
Well, and throughout yourself in San Francisco, we'll look forward to you being back with us as we get further and further along in this campaign. And safe travels, all right?
Thank you, Tim.